Hello and what is going on today, guys? Tomcat here, and welcome back to another episode of Need for Speed Heat. Now, we are picking up right where we left off in the previous episode, and as you can see, we're starting to mess around with the live tuning a little bit, where you can change the steering sensitivity, the downforce, the traction control, the brake bias. We don't have the parts on this car yet to mess with the downforce and the traction control or anything like that, but we are still able to mess with things like the steering sensitivity. So, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and head towards our next mission. Now, the way the missions work is they'll pop up around the map and boom, you go ahead and set your route to them and then you go ahead and go. Now, there are other missions where you will follow another car. You'll follow another character's car as they speak to you and you follow them through the world, which those are also a lot of fun to kind of like, you know, get a little bit more depth on the characters and stuff like that. But this will give you a little bit more of a look at the environment, a little bit more of a look at the a little bit more of a look at some of the areas in the game where you can see a little bit more of the rural neighborhoods and stuff like that. But I actually forgot to go ahead and check my text messages and get that message off the screen for you guys. But nonetheless, we got it off and we're going to go ahead and set off again. But real quick, I want to give you guys a chance to look around this in-game world. You can see cars parked at the houses and, you know, kind of some leaves blowing through the air. And I think as we go by these houses, it definitely feels very, very Florida. Like it definitely feels like, you know, your sort of suburban areas around Florida that are near a city but not quite, you know, completely in it yet. And then as you get closer to the city, you'll start to see apartment complexes, you'll start to see more intersections and stuff like that. There's a lot of bridges, and that's actually a really good thing in my opinion because the water looks great. The fact that we have a lot of bridges just makes me more excited to drive over the water. I mean, driving over the water always looks good, and the fact that there's so many bridges just allows us to have the ability to do that. So I think that at the end of the day, it really, really, really helps. So coming up to this gas station, I really also like the name of the gas stations, like Outrun Gas. I mean, I think that that's like really, really cool. It's sort of a nod to the old Outrun games. And also, as you can see, starting this mission flips us over into nighttime. And night is where the real magic happens in this game. Nighttime is where things really start to go down. I love the focus on these dark like pinks and purples. It really kind of makes the night feel a lot more colorful and feel a lot more alive as opposed to just being gray, because I feel like, you know, in a lot of games you see a lot of games that have night, but the nighttime isn't really all that vibrant and colorful. It's just gray. And when you have a night that's just gray, you don't really get a lot of personality. But when you have, you know, the purple glows and, you know, you can see the lights of the city out in the distance, it really adds to the overall life of the in-game world and adds to the life of the city. And you kind of have a nice contrast between the wet roads, the street lights, the purple ambient lighting here and there, which sometimes looks a little bit more pink, sometimes looks a little bit more purple. But the night definitely has a new vibe to it in terms of just how everything feels during the night as you're driving around. And luckily, I drove the right way because I was really worried when I got ahead of Anna that she was going to go a way that I was not, that she was going to go a different way than the way I went. But luckily and thankfully, as I plow head on into that F-150 because I was looking backwards, and then this dude, freaking Kenny, I think his name is coming up on the side here. Yeah, I got his name right. But anyways, the drive into the city definitely has a little bit of that underground vibe. Well, I shouldn't say a little bit. It has a lot of that underground vibe. Again, going exploring out here amongst the landscaping. But I think regardless, I was just trying to get a look of the city, or a look at the rest of the city, and I wasn't really paying too much attention to where I was going. But at the end of the day, you do have to remember that paying attention to where you're going is very, very important. But again, to quote Jeremy Clarkson, looking good is more important than looking where you're going. And that's very, very false. So coming up along the beach here, it really has, again, a really cool vibe. It mixes that beach vibe with a lot of that downtown underground vibe, and I think that really goes a long way in making you feel like you're in a very alive space. You know what I mean? The space feels alive. The space feels like you're really getting into what you're doing. And having the people milling around at the start line, that also helps get you into the vibe of what you're doing. And honestly, when you're racing at night, the game completely changes. The attitude changes, the feel change. Well, not really the feel, but like the overall attitude of everything that you're doing completely changes. And I think, you know, as you race throughout the night, it's very much a vibe of like you feel like you're trying to get away with something, right? You feel like you're trying to get away with something. You feel like you're on the run from something, which, as you'll see in the later videos, when we get chased by the cops during the night, we are on the run from something. We are very much so on the run from something. I messed up early on in this race, but even though the beginning of this race was a little shaky, we do definitely claw our way back to at least something later on. Now, driving along the coast here and driving around in the city is, I think, a good way for them to introduce the game to new players and, you know, to the player themselves as they make their way into the game. Because what is something that we've been asking for in Need for Speed for a long time? A dense city that you get basically a day and night cycle in, and a lot of people have been really wanting that underground vibe back, and I think 2015 did a really good job of bringing that underground vibe back, but a lot of people didn't appreciate that game because they didn't like the physics. But I can honestly say, guys, the physics feel very, very different, and I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, they look the same. Well, you're going to have to take my word for it, guys, because honestly, there is a difference in feel that is not describable from a basic, like, it's not describable from the standpoint of just and as you can see there, if you wait too long to restart, well, you'll end up finishing third. And unfortunately, I didn't end up getting to restart that race, but you know what? I mean, it's an early race, so it didn't really make all that big of a difference. But now, again, moving forward, I really, really do like the atmosphere that they've portrayed here. I love the atmosphere that they portrayed here, and I think on that note, the atmosphere that they're portraying is that you can have anything from these hypercars to something like a modified Fox body and still make a name for yourself and still do well in races and still, you know, pursue the goals that you want to pursue in the game. I mean, heck, if you want a C10 truck to do that in, you can. If you want to swap from your C10 truck to your Wyra BC, have at it. So at the end of the day, it really does a great job of making you realize that your story and your environment is completely under your control. And I think also, too, when you see the rain start to come down, you start to realize that the rain really does look so good in this environment. I mean, I love the way the map looks at night. I love the environment at night. I'm just honestly having such a absolute blast with this game that I can't really fully describe to you guys how much fun it is. And you're gonna have to take my word for it on the physics, because the physics are definitely something that you have to feel yourself. You have to feel them yourself as the game progresses, and as we get closer to launch, you're going to be seeing more and more content from me on the game, and you're going to have to trust me when I say that the physics have evolved, the physics are new, and the physics are different. Now, is the baseline still there? I mean, yes, if you played Need for Speed before, you will be able to jump into this physics system, but it's definitely got more depth than it ever has before. And when I say more depth, I mean that grip is a usable play style now. If you like to race with grip, like if you like to build a grip car, that is a usable play style now without a shadow of a doubt. It genuinely is, and I think at the end of the day, I'm so glad that it is a usable play style, because when grip is not a usable play style, then everybody just drifts. But when grip is a usable playstyle, you have this balance between grip guys and drift guys that are both trying to find the fastest way around these tracks and around these routes around the map. So with that being said, you definitely have a new set of challenges that come along with that, and I think learning the new physics system is a big part of that. And that also, I mean, I know there's going to be a lot of people that are going to say, wow, that was terrible, you suck at this game. There was very little space for me to go there. So, I mean, you know, it is what it is, and I think, you know, when you have your first shot at a game, you're going to make some mistakes and you're going to mess up. And I think at the end of the day, you know, it's a brand new game. It is also very much so a brand new physics system, and so you are going to make some mistakes here and there while you're learning it. I love the views that you get, by the way, driving into the city at night. You see the whole city lit up. The game is very, very aesthetically pleasing to look at. It's very visually pleasing. The lighting is gorgeous. The reflections are gorgeous. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways that I had from playing it, and every time I get to play it again, that's another big takeaway that I have over and over and over and over. The lighting and the visuals are so satisfying to look at that as you blast through the city during the night, you just look around and you go, oh my god, this looks incredible. And it honestly really does, because it's almost a little bit distracting at times, because you're like, wow, this is so pretty, and you're like, I need to be focusing on the race at hand. Luckily, we were able to win that one as opposed to the less than optimal result we had in the previous race. And honestly, I think a good way to describe the physics here too is you can see as I'm driving in these races that the car isn't always sliding. You know what I mean? The car isn't always sliding. The car isn't always getting crazy out of shape. There are some times when it slides, but that's more due to, like, me telling it to slide, really. And, you know, when you tell it to slide, that's just the car doing what you asked it to do. Now, driving around at night, I didn't really get into all that much trouble on this particular night, but don't worry, we have some crazy nighttime chases coming for you guys very soon. This is more of a look at the night races and a little bit more of a look at night from an aesthetic standpoint. And I think that at the end of the day, it's important to have a good look at what night really does look like in this game, and because I think returning to that nighttime dynamic is really important. And also, I have a feeling that I'm going to be spending a lot of time at night, a lot of time in the game at night, because I just love how it looks, man. Now, when you're out in the countryside, it's not quite as vibrant, obviously, but when you're in the city, oh my god, the city at night is the place to be. I'm definitely a massive fan of the city during the night. Now, when you end the night, you'll get money and you will also get rep, which you need the rep to unlock parts, and you need the money to then buy those parts and also buy the cars. So the use of night is more to get rep than anything else. We leveled up a little bit. We were almost level 3. Didn't quite have enough to get there, but I think at the end of the day, we'll definitely be ranking up a lot more in the episodes to come. But if you guys are enjoying this Need for Speed Heat series and these Need for Speed Heat videos that I was very glad to get my hands on early, then make sure you leave me a like. Let me know down in that comment section below if you've been enjoying them. I most certainly have been enjoying bringing them to you guys. And as you can see here, we're actually going to load into the next morning, in which we see a little bit more of the cutscenes from the story, which are, by the way, very beautifully done, I think. And I also think that they're reminiscent of some of the old Most Wanted 05 cutscenes, and it reminds me of the characters interacting, you know, with Cross and other like members of the Blacklist and stuff like that. So I think you'll really develop a relationship with these characters moving forward, and relationships with characters is very important in terms of creating a story that will be memorable. But also, I think the game is definitely going to be focused around more than just story, but I think it's also important to realize that there is a really interesting story here, and I could see getting connected to these characters and remembering these characters in the future. So
Give me the same damn talk.
Then act like it, mija.
What? Like you did?
Cálmate.
Where are you staying?
That's a good question.
How about a garage?
Yeah.
People stay here all the time.
You sure? Find a free couch. It's all yours.
And just like that, we've got ourselves a place to stay, and we've got ourselves a place to store our car. Make sure you come back for the next episode, where we'll be diving much deeper into more features of the garage and more. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.